Welcome to the Third House podcast. I'm Erica, your host, and together we'll unravel the astrological and psychological tapestry that shapes our lives. Join me on this exploration towards our deepest potential and authentic selves. I can't wait to connect on our journey of self-discovery, so let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this discussion, this chit chat about Neptune entering Aries. Neptune will enter Aries on March 30th, 2025, the day after the new moon solar eclipse takes place here, which in my opinion is very, very significant. So if you haven't checked out that podcast episode, please do. Neptune will retrograde back into Pisces on October 22nd, 2025, and then re-enter Aries on January 26th, 2026 until roughly 2038. So Neptune sticks around for a while, and I'm really going to emphasize the Saturn-Neptune conjunction because Neptune's ingress into Aries will largely, in my opinion, be defined by its conjunction to Saturn for at least a few years. So Saturn enters Aries May 24th, around, I think it's exact, enters May 24th. And starts to apply to a conjunction with Neptune and Aries, where they'll technically be conjunct through, I think, around 2026, despite their retrograde cycles, etc. So when I'm talking about conjunctions, I'm not talking about exact, but the exact conjunction of Saturn-Neptune will take place at 0 degrees of Aries in February 2026, where they will technically be conjunct pretty much through most of 2026. So I don't want to get too far ahead into the Neptune and Aries sort of transits and conjunctions and other aspects. Kind of want to just focus on the next couple years because there's just so much happening. And I think it's important to just kind of take one step at a time. So Neptune's last ingress into Aries was 1861. So it's been a bit. You can, wherever you are in the world listening to this, you can easily just Google, major events in or around 1861 in your country, things that kind of came up that can, it's not going to be the same exact things that happen. So here in the United States, 1861, we're talking Civil War. So, we're not to jump to conclusions and say, we're headed for another Civil War. We're not doing that. But it can sort of give you clues as to the feelings, the dissolution of particular things in society. Now I'm going to go through each rising sign, so I will be trying to focus more on the individual versus the collective in this podcast episode. And I'm going to just sort of go through what I think Neptune represents, what Saturn represents, and what these two being conjunct represent. And then I will go through each rising sign and what it might represent for you in Aries and the area of your chart ruled by Aries. So Neptune, I think, has a dissolving effect, which if you've been listening to me for a while, I'm a broken record saying this. But I also think it can have a cleansing purifying and even refining effect on what it touches in the chart. And refinement and cleansing and purifying can be a very good thing. It could be very positive. But refining something too much isn't always a good thing. Now, we know this with food and nutrition. The more you refine something, it's further away from its organic state. So think about, refined foods, or, it's further away from its original pure sort of state where things are synergistically, from a nutritional standpoint, synergistically working together. So I'm definitely not going to say this is positive or this is negative. It can be both. Life is very complex and complicated. So it could be a positive experience to sort of purify or cleanse particular areas of our chart or things that it's interacting with. Now, I think the more common archetype or depiction of Neptune is this idealistic, dreams, illusion, deception. And it absolutely can be that. But I also think that Neptune can inspire us to go beyond the mundane realities. And the only way we're going to be able to see all the possibilities and potential is if we sort of dissolve that narrow vision or the walls that we build to only see one way. So again, idealism, dreams, illusion can be a positive thing. It can be a wonderful thing when you're trying to believe in yourselves and create something or manifest something, to create something new in the world that doesn't exist. In a sense, it kind of takes some delusion, right? You have to go beyond the structures and societal norms to bring something new into the world. And so you have to sort of live in a state of delusion or idealism in order to persevere through that in many circumstances. And so again, Neptune can inspire us to go beyond the mundane realities in our life. And what Neptune touches or interacts with can create a lack of boundaries. As I mentioned before, sort of opening up to all the possibilities. Now, the negative vibration of that would be chaos. We don't have the proper containers to hold people, places, things, emotions, ideas. It's going to be very difficult to turn that dream into a reality. So Neptune can be very seductive. It can be very glamorous, which is why I think it gets associated with TV, video, film, art, media. Again, for better or worse, glamour, seduction. It can definitely be a positive thing, or it can be taken too far, where there is too much lack of boundaries or containers in order to turn it into something, tangible or sustainable. Now, Saturn's very different from Neptune. I mean, I can't think if these were people, I can't think of two people that couldn't be more different. So Saturn, and again, this is my opinion, so take it or leave it, because people get very opinionated about what they think Saturn represents, because it depends on the stage or milestone within the relationship they have with Saturn. My relationship with Saturn 10 years ago, before my Saturn return, is wildly different from the relationship that I have with Saturn now. So our relationship with Saturn, like many other planets, changes over time. But I think with Saturn, it tends to be this prominent place because it's a place where there can be pain. And as human beings, we remember emotional, physical, mental, spiritual pain. That is just, in many aspects, the way we are wired. So again, this is my opinion at this juncture with my relationship with Saturn. Someone who's 10, 20, 30 years older than me would have, a very different, potentially different perspective on this. So take it or leave it. But I actually think that Saturn can represent deep fear. And I think most of us can agree that Saturn represents restriction, control, discipline, responsibilities, and authority. Many things necessary in order to build things, people, places, things, in a sustainable way, or create longevity and commitment in our lives. And I think Saturn has us face our core intention behind our commitment, restriction, discipline, etc. So if the core intention behind the discipline, the duty, the responsibility, the commitment is fear, that's going to be very different if we face our core intention around these traits, where maybe it's not fear, or you've grown out of fear and the core intention to build and be responsible and disciplined towards a particular thing is to build a legacy, to leave something sustainable and, in a better place than when you entered this world. So I think intention is everything when we're talking about Saturn, and it representing, what is our intention behind the things that Saturn represents? And that can really set the stage, because if we're planting the seeds of fear, if we're doing things out of fear, I think that is where Saturn becomes really painful and difficult, because you build something out of fear and you do things out of fear, you will inevitably have to face your fears when the trials and tribulations of life, or when certain things are, start to fall apart or no longer work, or require some level of strengthening. So I think intention is everything with Saturn, and I think that that's why it gets a really bad reputation. I've learned to love Saturn by working through my own fears and creating more awareness around, why am I doing things? Because if I'm doing it out of fear, well, life happens, and that fear is going to grow and grow and grow, and then it's going to be really, really painful. Or am I doing something out of really trying to improve, create more integrity, create a better system, environment for myself or other people? And when faced with trials and tribulations through that, if that is the intention, then sure, it will be challenging, but there will be a deep, visceral, more positive seeds that were planted that sort of create that perseverance to the next level, if that makes sense. So I think we can also hide Saturn in our charts and thus life by creating a socially acceptable version of it that conceals something much deeper. But through time and effort, we are able to transform what is concealed into gold. And I think that is where Saturn, tests us and strengthens us, and then we're able to get the reward. Maybe it's not the reward we thought we would get or thought we would want. But I think this is an interesting concept involving Saturn that I've sat with for many, many years, where do we try to create sort of a mask or a persona, or we try to hide the Saturn in our chart? Now, again, it depends on your personal placements. It depends on, what Saturn is interacting with, that this may not apply to you. So again, if it resonates, great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. But I think, again, the whole Saturn return notoriously getting, a painful reputation. It's sort of like, what did you hide behind for the first roughly, 30 years of your life that now you're being forced to sort of reckon with or come to terms with? So I also think it's important to note that Saturn can represent the authority in your life. I think this is a more common description of Saturn. The authority, the father, or, the representation of the father in your life. And to a certain extent, I agree with that. But I actually like to think of it as your own inner authority. Because if we have authority in our lives, we, it's like a wall, it's a pause, it's a delay, it's something to sort of like, usually authority is associated with some sense of obstacle. And I like to think of the mirror. So if Saturn represents authority and we face authority, what is that showing us about ourselves? What is that showing us about our own inner authority? What is it showing us that we need to strengthen in terms of our own inner authority? So, for example, I have a sacral authority in human design. So when I'm looking at my human design profile, I have, my authority is sacral. And this is associated with a very strong gut response. Listening to my gut response that provides me a visceral yes or no. But it has taken many years with Saturn, either through my own trials and tribulations or through authority, to develop, strengthen, and trust that inner authority. So there was many, many times in my life where I felt that visceral yes. Something, the best way I can describe it is just, my whole body would light up and be like, this aligns, this feels yes. But there would be external authority in my life that would try to tell me no. And I got to the point where instead of victimizing or doubting myself or not trusting that inner authority, I use the external authority I almost looked at it like it's the opponent. It's the opponent in the game. What is it trying to strengthen about my inner authority? Because just because something feels like a visceral yes, and then you go to do it, there's going to be people out there that are going to push up against me, that are going to tell me otherwise, or they're going to tell me I'm crazy. So that external authority, that Saturnian external authority, was able, as frustrating as it was able to strengthen my inner authority, because it allowed me to not only trust that visceral yes, or that inner knowing, but believing in myself allowed me to not only persevere, and I don't want to say like prove them wrong, because that wasn't my intention. I think it was more of like, I think Saturn was teaching me the relationship with authority of, if you're constantly responding and listening to outer authority over your own inner knowing, when you are wired, you are programmed for sacral authority in your profile, you are never going to feel aligned. But in order to strengthen that sacral inner gut response in myself, I needed that opposition. I needed that opposition to come in. So I think Saturn is, yes, about authority, but what is that teaching us about our own inner authority and how we are responding to our own inner knowing and authority? Now, I want to talk a little bit about Saturn's ability to protect us, because Neptune's influence could drastically change our relationship to how we protect ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally. So Saturn can help us build brick walls that allow us to hide behind identities, patterns, relationships, etc., that can prevent potential and possibilities to come into our lives through those metaphorical brick walls. Now, this isn't me preaching to the choir or me on a pedestal telling all of you this. I mean, those of you that have worked with me for a while one-on-one know I am not the astrologer that shuts my own personal experiences out and expects everyone else to be vulnerable. Now, my Saturn, for example, has built brick walls of workaholism, routine, or even my own long-term health issues that have allowed me to sort of keep things out, right? If I'm really busy, if I'm working all the time, I have my routine, or I'm dealing with my health, it's very hard for people to argue with me about that duty and responsibility. But as much as I love my work and I love my routine and, taking care of my health and well-being, sometimes I take it too far and I use it as a wall to block things out or going off of what Saturn represents, control. So I'm looking forward to Neptune's dissolving effects that hopefully can influence a more open to life philosophy in my life, or seeing more possibilities and potential with my work and what I do. I think the Saturn-Neptune conjunction could also have many of us confront where we are holding on to things, either due to, fear or control. But I also want to mention, I think there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, Saturn represents fear and control, and, where Neptune, Saturn, where can we dissolve, these walls, these fears, these control, the responsibility, the duty. And the fact of the matter is that there are certain circumstances in life where individuals are in seasons of their life where that duty and that responsibility isn't going away. And I think this is where potentially that Neptune, in modern astrology, that Neptune sort of Pisces, again, in modern astrology, leads to this potential like victim or martyr to the duty and the responsibility and the authority. So, but I think that this conjunction will help many of us become more aware of the metaphorical walls, the people, places, and things, whatever it may be, that sort of keep us in certain paradigms and patterns that don't allow some potential and possibility to come through. Now, the conjunction, I like to think of conjunctions in astrology as the blending of the two energies. So the blending of, the Neptune and Saturn that I just discussed. But I think something that is not talked about with conjunctions is that planets that are conjunct, it can often sort of make it difficult for each planet to see its own identity, right? It's like they're merged, they're infused together. It's like if you're cooking in the kitchen and you mix two things together, it's hard to separate them again. So they sort of can blend the energy by like taking on the identity, or there can be a lack of, seeing its own identity in the process. So when we put these two planets together, we could see the transcending or transcendence of boundaries, our relationship with boundaries, the brick walls that we've built, and which ones need to stay versus which ones need to go. Also, lessons involving purification, refinement. How far do we go to refine or purify before it's no longer good? Again, collectively, this conjunction is notorious for epidemics. So again, this is not like fear-mongering. It's just, it's notorious for epidemics where this is an opportunity to maybe cleanse, purify, and refine to prevent illness. Again, going back to authority, this could be our relationship to authority or our inner authority could become more idealistic. So it could it could transform from this like hard, realistic to this sort of, idealistic, where maybe some of us will want to escape, or we dream up sort of escaping from outdated structures, systems, and boundaries that just no longer support us or no longer support the life we want to create. I think a potential challenge for Neptune Saturn conjunctions, we might experience in a variety of ways, is turning the vision or dream into reality. And we have to be very careful not to become too sacrificial or martyrs, right? If we're really desperate to turn a vision into reality, we can sacrifice parts of ourselves or lives that are actually integral to who we are. And I think we have to be careful with becoming martyrs or sacrificing those really important parts of ourselves just to get it into reality. Now, if you're an artist, if you're a creative, I think this conjunction could be incredible, because Saturn can establish form to the Neptunian dreams, visions, and fantasies. So I kind of want to provide a little bit more detail, where I think when it comes to like the creative arts, technology, all of those things, I think that this conjunction could be a great, incredible transit to sort of create sort of a new relationship or a new identity to artistic self-expression, creativity, where you can become a little bit more boundless. You can see more possibilities, or you can create that structure and form to that dream. But I think when it involves sort of everyday life or relationships, trauma, emotions, those kinds of things, I think this conjunction is going to be, I think, beautifully opportunistic to dissolve outdated patterns, systems, and structures that no longer support the life we want, the direction we want to take. But it can also sort of thin the veil to where it can be hard to maybe distinguish reality versus fantasy or what's going on, internally. So I think it can be incredible for artists, creatives, even writers, anything where you're, any form of creative self-expression. But I think it could be tricky when it comes to our emotions, our inner authority regarding, why we do the things we do, our relationships, our, like our approach to other things. So the last thing I want to discuss about this is the midpoint. So Neptune will technically be hanging around the midpoint of Uranus and Pluto, which will be in a trine configuration. So taking into consideration everything I just talked about, where it's happening in your chart, which I'm going to go through each rising sign shortly, taking into account all of that and how that is basically at the midpoint of this rapid change and innovation to transform and empower a different area of the chart and thus life. So I think, just generally speaking, again, this doesn't take into account your natal chart or your rising sign, but I think Neptune at the midpoint of Uranus and Pluto could be, or create the empathy and compassion towards other people. At least I'm hoping that that's the case. I think it can sort of innovate and change and empower people to sort of share their story, share that inner world or that inner authority, where we can hopefully sort of understand each other a little bit more, understand what's going on beyond the boundary, or when the brick wall comes down and we can sort of see what's really going on behind closed doors, to be able to have that empathy and that compassion. Also, I think like special interest, diving into like niches, just special interest in general could become a major sort of collective theme with this. I think people are going to, or I hope, I'm hopeful that I think people will sort of innovate, change, transform, and empower themselves to maybe accept the special niche or unique way of doing things. So I think this has the potential for people to start maybe not only just doing the things that they're good at, especially like creativity, self-expression, those kinds of things, but sort of accept the weirdness, the uniqueness. So I'm trying to think of an example. The first thing that comes to mind is always food. So let's see, like Michelin star chefs, for example. You know, maybe they go to culinary school and they learn the typical ropes, or they're taught that food and creating or becoming a Michelin star chef is done in a very particular way. And there actually was a point in history where Michelin star chefs really started to challenge the system, the culinary system. And by, maybe certain chefs had a very unique way of doing things, or they chose very interesting ingredients that no one else was using. But it didn't fall into the paradigm that they were taught in terms of what success looks like, how one is supposed to be the pinnacle of, the culinary world. And through the innovation of food and ingredients and the empowerment of one's self, they were able to sort of dissolve and restructure or create form to the dream or vision of how food should be presented, or how food should taste, or how food should be experienced. So that's sort of the analogy I can give, is I think people are going to start to move. So if you have, a niche or a particular passion that it doesn't quite exist in the world or would challenge certain systems or structures, I'd be interested to see how that starts to unfold for you. So, but before we sort of, go through this Saturnian, Neptunian journey, I think it's natural for Saturn transits to bring up a lack of confidence because it can bring up feelings of, well, I should do it this way or I should do it better. Achieving one milestone and then it's on to the next. So I'm hoping with Neptune, we can sort of bring form to the dream or the vision, but also celebrate our milestones through the process. So again, I think after Saturn comes in and potentially separates, restructures, and maybe questions the strength of particular things, I think things can sort of, I think I'm hopeful that we can start to rebuild a better future collectively and also individually. Hello, Aries risings. Neptune is going to ingress or move into your first house of self, body, identity. Also, the first house can represent, you independently taking action. So this is interesting because it's sort of, it's a very tangible physical house. I mean, it rules the physical body, the self. So I think Neptune entering the first house for some of you could be an opportunity to sort of see where maybe you've had preconceived ideals as to how you're supposed to show up in the world. And that has potentially affected your career, relationships with family, or even personal relationships as well. Sort of putting these like, where have you put idealistic expectations on yourselves and how you're supposed to present yourself to the world, and how maybe in some aspects that has created patterns or even problems in other areas of your life. So this could sort of present an opportunity to maybe build up the confidence around sort of accepting who you are at this juncture in your life, and how that sort of dissolution around anything that's not really serving your body, your appearance, your identity, how you want to show up in the world, can allow other people to view you in just you, like your authentic self, and be able to sort of potentially build a career, a home and family life, and even personal partnerships based off of the true version of you. So Saturn entering the picture is particularly interesting because Saturn rules your 10th house of career and public recognition, as well as your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So the potential dissolving effect around who you think you have to be, or this idealized, fantasized version that you're trying to live up to or become, could, maybe the walls dissolve around that. Maybe your identity is changing with your career, your business, your public recognition. Maybe you're dissolving walls or boundaries around how you relate with your social network and how that dictates your long-term goals. So there's definitely this sort of integration of like, what is the possibilities and potentials around your physical body, taking independent action, your identity, even appearance, and how that could potentially restructure, create new patterns and systems where you can feel you can sort of see the bridge between the realistic current version of yourselves selves versus the idealistic vision part of who you want to become, and how that could really assist you in creating the new structures, the new patterns to building the social network you really desire, aligning yourselves to the long-term goals that align to the deepest, most authentic part of yourselves, that also support and create structures, systems, and patterns for your career, business, and public recognition. Hello, Taurus risings. Neptune entering your Aries 12th house could create an opportunity to see where your preconceived ideals of how your inner reality versus the external reality should be. And so some of you might start to see the dissolution or see where the disconnect potentially is between how you think things should be versus how they are at this particular juncture in your life. So the 12th house, yes, it is, the house of the subconscious thought patterns, the dreams, the life vision. So your subconscious thought patterns, your dreams, your, even potentially where you limit yourself, where you self-sabotage yourselves could start to become more apparent as the dissolution or the boundaries start to or the brick wall, so to speak, starts to come down. So some of you might start to really see sort of your thought patterns, your thought process, your need for more rest and recharge and even solitude in your life. I think this could be, with Saturn here, there could initially be the challenge of sort of accepting the perfectly imperfect version of life, whether it's your inner world or your outer world being projected outward. So I think this dissolution around like expectations around how you should feel, how you should think, what you should be grateful for, what what your inner guidance or your intuition should be telling you. So sort of releasing those expectations around those things to actually sort of open up to more potential and possibility from that intangible place, right? The inner reality, where if we all look around in the world, everything that we see that's tangible was once a thought in someone's mind. So sort of releasing those expectations and sort of maybe releasing outdated systems, patterns, structures that no longer support this potentially new chapter where you start to sort of say, okay, like the surrender of the natural unfolding of life. And although this is happening in your 12th house, Saturn rules your Capricorn 9th house of growth and potential. So anything to do with publishing, teaching, traveling, spirituality, higher knowledge, or anything you seek for growth and potential, as well as your 10th house of career and public recognition. So although this is happening in the 12th house, this has a lot of career growth and potential written all over it in terms of, in my personal opinion. So this isn't about, just your own mental expectations you have on yourself or you put on yourselves. This could also involve sort of the unfolding of life and moving into sort of that, again, perfectly imperfect, to allow new systems and structures mentally, internally regarding your life vision, your thought patterns, that could have a significant effect on your career, your public recognition, as well as your whole approach to growth and potential in your lives. So a lot of Taurus risings can start to maybe open up to more possibilities and potentials regarding career or public recognition, and maybe your old thought patterns or mental structures supported a previous paradigm within your career, your business, your growth or potential in your lives, that now it's time to maybe tap or sort of create or allow new structures and systems where you can start to mentally tap into or see the bridge between reality versus the ideal, and how I think sort of the intuition and the inner guidance, especially with Neptune going through here, could be really interesting. Some of you might really start to sort of see the dissolution of boundaries and being able to sort of really form a new relationship with your inner guidance and your intuition, or see, the possibilities and potential really start to sort of dissolve those mental brick walls, see more, potential and dreams regarding a life vision that might very well, yes, like I said, happen in that 12th house, which is very hidden. It's not a very public house, but whatever Saturn Neptune conjunction journey sends you on mentally, I think it could completely help you restructure your mental thought patterns, hopefully for better, that have a direct influence on seeing all the potential and possibilities with career, business, and public recognition. Hello, Gemini risings. Neptune entering your Aries 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals, I think could send many of you on a journey that could influence how you relate to your social network and your long-term goals, where I think a process, a purification could take place that actually sets the stage for a new perfection to take place regarding your social network, your dreams, aspirations, and long-term goals. Now, I think that's all good and dandy and very abstract of me to say, but I think this could be an opportunity to see how you relate to your social network. What is your relationship to your long-term goals? And where are the idealistic expectations that you put on yourselves with your own goals versus, how you should be interacting with other people versus how other people should be interacting with you. So this could be a journey of, yes, seeing a new perfection, but through that, releasing, dissolving, cleansing, purifying how outdated structures, patterns, even beliefs around, how things ought to be, how things have to be regarding how you pursue your goals. Maybe some of you are seeing a new perfection take place over the next couple years where maybe the possibilities and the potentials start to open up as those brick walls start to come down, where you can pursue the dreams, the aspirations, and the long-term goals. Maybe not initially the way you thought, but in a way where new possibilities and new potentials start to take place. So I think this could also open yourselves up to relating with others, especially, friends, groups, communities of people in a new way versus how you relate currently. And I think, if we're talking dreams, aspirations, goals, this could be an opportunity to sort of release what is no longer serving, what you need to let go in terms of structures, patterns that maybe got you to where you are today. But I think this is where a fresh, new vision could take place. And it could take place among your community of friends, your peers, your social network, where maybe there's a little bit less boundary between you and your friends, groups, and communities, where new ideas, new, freshness, a new vision can start to take place as you sort of relate to other people in your community and even to your own long-term goals in a completely different way. Where there could also be this undercurrent of seeing how life leads you to particular people, places, and things that somehow serve a higher goal or dream of yours. So I think it's not just about dissolving outdated structures or boundaries in terms of how you relate to friends, groups, communities, and your goals. I think there's a bigger picture taking place here where you can really change the way you build and relate to those themes. Where again, I think a new perfection or your idea of perfection can sort of transform. Now, Saturn rules your Capricorn 8th house of transformation and other people's resources, including a partner's resources, as well as your Aquarius 9th house of growth and potential. Anything you seek for growth and potential, which could be higher knowledge, teaching, publishing, travel, spirituality. But if you have your midheaven in your Aquarius 9th house, this could have strong career and public recognition themes written all over it. So it could be, yes, about friends, groups, communities, long-term goals, and sort of the things that I discussed regarding that, but in a way where it could serve a higher goal, a dream, or aspiration pertaining to your career, business, public recognition. But regardless, I think whatever's going on with your social network or your long-term goals and setting the stage for hopefully this new perfection to take place, where you can sort of see the bridge between where you are now in this very realistic season of life and idealistically what you want to bring into that reality, and allowing life to unfold, potentially bring you to new people, places, and things that serve the goal and the vision. But it could involve, again, with Saturn's rulership, it could involve a lot of growth and potential in your life. It could start to not only affect the friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals, but it could quite literally dissolve and restructure new patterns, new systems, new ways of being that fully support the expansion of, yes, transformation, but also your resources, your growth, and potential. Hello, Cancer risings. Neptune entering your Aries 10th house of career, business, public recognition, social status, I think could be an opportunity to maybe dissolve, release the outdated structures, patterns, systems involving your career and or public recognition. So some of you might be already feeling this or sort of thinking about how you want to create more boundlessness in your work, which could equate to creating more freedom in your life. So this could look like, maybe you've had a business or you've been in your career for a while and, you've operated within a certain system or structure. And Neptune entering this area could start to feel like, well, now what's next? How do I want to transcend this way of being within my work? And that transcending could be maybe incorporating more freedom, maybe incorporating more creativity. For some of you, a good question to ask yourselves would be, what is an idealistic version of your work that is not a current reality, but through restructuring of systems, patterns, whatever it may be, could maybe start to integrate and bring in that vision into a tangible reality. Another possibility with this is maybe they're through the systems and structures around, your career, your work, your business, whatever it may be, or even just your social status or public recognition. You've had to live up to a certain way of being. You've had to present yourself a certain way. You've had to operate in the world a particular way. And it's sort of created a system or structure where you've had to sort of present yourself or operate in the world in a very visible way that is your current standard or ideal. That maybe some of you are like, this is exhausting, or I want to change the way I show myself in the world. I want to change the way, or I want to sort of dissolve and restructure the way I have public recognition or my social status or, how other people view me and how I operate within my business or my work. So this could be a journey of completely like restructuring your business. It could be changing the way, it could be changing your idea of perfection involving your work. So this could quite literally be sort of this new chapter that a lot of Cancer risings are stepping into. I think some of you might see how maybe some of you are pivotal people in your community or your business or your work, and there's some level of having to be a particular role model or a sort of, person that is looked up to, where maybe you want to transcend that. You want to move beyond that and sort of maybe accept certain more human aspects of yourself in that process. And that might come out through creativity, work projects, public recognition, and just, changing the way you operate or present yourself to the world, whether it's through your work or through just your general social status or public recognition. Now, Saturn rules your Capricorn 7th house of personal and professional partnerships, including marriage, as well as your Aquarius 8th house of transformational work and resources, including a partner's resources. So this could also involve, not just your career, your business, your public recognition, and everything that I've discussed up to this point regarding that area. It could also directly impact how you relate to others. How maybe there's a part of you that wants to change the way you operate within your work, your public recognition, your business, which could directly change or create more of the vision you have regarding partnership or how you relate with others. So I think this could be a wonderful opportunity for some Cancer risings to see how you move and operate and how things unfold within your work or public recognition can sort of also help create new structures and systems regarding your relationships, your partnerships. So I think some of you, it might be just personal partnerships. If you feel more, like your authentic self within your career, your work, your business, your public recognition, that could directly attract the type of people or partnerships, personal or professional, that you want, that you desire. So it's not just about career. I quite literally think that it could really open up the potential and possibilities regarding resources, as well as, really attracting and integrating the personal and professional partnerships you really desire, where, there's that deep richness or authenticity, trust built within it, where maybe you're not this, this is my persona at work, or this is my, idealized version of how everyone expects me to be with my public recognition and my business. But maybe some of you are becoming or desiring more relatable, richer experiences within your work and public recognition that could dramatically open up potential and possibilities within personal and professional partnerships. Hello, Leo risings. Neptune entering your Aries 9th house of growth and potential. So think higher knowledge, spirituality, travel, teaching, publishing, any of those things that you are seeking for growth and potential could definitely go on a long journey of changing. So there's a lot of possibilities here because there is so much going on in the 9th house. I would say if you're a teacher or, publishing, writing, those kinds of things, you could really completely restructure the way that you do it. You could restructure it, release outdated ways of doing it that could really open up potential and possibility regarding, teaching, philosophy, spirituality, publishing, those kinds of things. I think in terms of the, long distance travel, landing in the 9th house, there could be even mystical, maybe spiritual experiences through travel. But I think all in all, this could really start to, like, if you have beliefs or, structures, systems, patterns around maybe spirituality, what you grew up with, especially, you know, anything regarding childhood that was sort of superimposed on you in terms of like how you have to think, how you have to be, that really has caused, again, going back to Saturn, a lot of times causing us pain and sort of sending us on a journey through, you know, with our relationship to fear and pain. This could, for some of you, be an opportunity to dissolve and, I guess, decondition and recondition those beliefs that shape your reality, that shape the growth and potential in your lives, where the reconditioning, with hopefully through Saturn's sort of ability to construct, could open more potential and possibilities regarding growth and potential in your lives. I'm trying to think of other things that come up with the 9th house. You could, I think there is a lot of opportunity to obtain or even receive higher ideas. You know, the 9th house talking about like religion and spirituality. It's sort of like with Neptune's ability to dissolve and even like create sort of a boundlessness, with Saturn's ability to sort of like build, reconstruct. There is an element of, you know, maybe you're taking your knowledge to a new level, you're taking your spirituality to a new level, you're taking these things that you want to create more growth and potential, but you're maybe up leveling it. Like you're taking it to a new level through your ability to maybe lift the veil between the higher levels of knowledge that supersede sort of this black and white mentality we can often have on Earth, or through the human existence. So I think through this, you might be able to sort of rise above opinion or judgment, to kind of see the bigger picture where higher knowledge, higher spirituality can sort of take place. Saturn rules your Capricorn 6th house of daily work, health, and routines, as well as your Aquarius 7th house of personal and professional partnerships, including marriage. So there's a lot of things on the table here, but let's start with one house at a time. With Saturn ruling your Capricorn 6th house, this could definitely involve, you know, rising above, you know, obtaining higher levels of knowledge, philosophy, spirituality, you know, finding new ways to restructure your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual lives to see more potential and possibilities in terms of expanding your life. That could have a direct impact on your work and or your health. So maybe you're obtaining new knowledge or sort of seeing the potential and possibilities that could have a restructuring effect on your vitality and your health, which could be incredible. Some of you, it might give you a totally new way of approaching your work, your daily routines. Now with Saturn ruling your Aquarius 7th house, whatever the restructuring of patterns to, yes, sort of, I guess, create new structures and systems for the vision or the new chapter of growth and potential that you really want to integrate in your lives, could directly impact your approach to partnership in your life as well. So the sort of transcending knowledge, spirituality, you know, going back to travel, maybe there's traveling or trips that, you meet certain individuals or you form certain personal or professional partnerships through the travel, through the continuing education that assist you on your journey to sort of creating more potential and creating more possibilities. So I think it's not just about growth and potential and sort of dissolving the outdated patterns that where you're trying to up level that growth and potential. Saturn's rulership involving your seventh house of partnership, I think, could also start integrating certain professional or personal partnerships in your lives that provide the intellectual and spiritual richness needed to build that next phase or up leveling in your lives. It could also be the vice versa, a situation where the more you focus on your own transcendence, your own higher knowledge, travel, sort of growth and potential in your lives, you could consequently attract like-minded people or start to find the personal or professional partnerships, or so to speak, that soul tribe into your life, where maybe you feel seen and heard in a very boundlessness, sort of deep, rich, spiritual way. So that's another possibility that I see with this. The only thing with the ninth house is there might, in terms of like what you need to release, could be a lot of things on the table, right? There's a lot of things going on in the ninth house, but I guess releasing if this resonates, releasing the unrealistic expectations you put on yourself to be the most knowledgeable, or the most knowing or spiritual, or the best writer, the best teacher, like the unrealistic expectations that actually might play into Saturn's brick wall, that actually creates more of a wedge between you and other people. Or it could just be getting out in the world more, sort of releasing those brick walls. And, there could be sort of this restructuring where it's like actually you are desiring to explore the world more, wanting to travel more, seek more knowledge elsewhere, that could really start to open up the personal and professional partnerships, but getting, deconstructing that wall or getting out of this idealistic expectation some of you might put on yourself. So for example, some of you might have in order for me to be successful, in order for me to go after the next level of growth and potential, as well as, the personal and professional partnerships I really want to attract in my life, then I must obtain the ideal regarding those ninth house themes. When this could be the opportunity to just say, hey, we're not all ideal. We're all flawed. And you can explore, you can create more adventure, whether it's intellectually or physically through travel, or writing, teaching. And through that, sort of release around the unrealistic expectations, you can start to see and experience life through personal and professional partnerships, your own expansion of knowledge, spirituality, travel, growth, and potential themes, where you can start to actually see the bridge that is going to take that ideal or vision or dream and infuse it into reality. Hello, Virgo risings. Neptune entering your Aries 8th house of transformation and resources has a lot of potential on the table, particularly, yes, involving transformational work and long-term finances, but also how you merge with another, how you create mutual empowerment with another could have some restructuring, some dissolution, and rebuilding where you can start to maybe restructure and create a more ideal situation, not just for yourselves, but also anything to do with creating that mutual empowerment within personal and professional partnerships, whether it's through transformational work or finances. So when it's interesting because when Neptune entered my 8th house, it really initiated a very long journey of seeing how sort of like where the lines and boundaries were between what I considered mine versus the other, and what mutual empowerment really meant to me. Because I think if we're talking about Neptune and we're talking about the 8th house and mutual empowerment and sort of like the merging of resources, whether it's personal or professional, it's sort of this abstract thing we can toss around. But what does it really mean? And I think it's such an individual, it's so individualized, it's so personalized, and it really relies on your approach to relationship in your life. You know, what is your idea of commitment? What is your idea of follow through? What is your idea of, you know, what does merging look like for you? Neptune going through the 8th in terms of the 8th house ruling sort of that psychotherapy, transformational work could also be an incredible journey to sort of dissolve the outdated structures, patterns that have produced a lot of fear, right? 8th house rules fear as well. And I think in terms of like transformational work, it could be incredible, especially with Saturn's ability to sort of actualize, to rebuild, to restructure, where it could be an opportunity to say, I really just want to dissolve my ideas that no longer serve me, that no longer serve, you know, my relationships or future relationships in terms of like mutual empowerment or my own inner transformational work. So yes, it's about the 8th house, but I think it could heavily involve how you relate with others, because the 8th house, it comes after the 7th house of partnership, where Saturn has transited for a few years now. So a lot of Virgo risings, you've had some trials and tribulations and sort of restructuring and, you know, things coming up, definitely within personal and professional partnerships, including marriage. And Saturn's ingress into that 8th house, conjunct Neptune, could sort of be this opportunity to say, okay, it's time for a new chapter. It's time for a new way of being, whether it's the mutual empowerment I really want to attract in my life within partnerships, or sort of dissolve the fears and the old patterns and the old ways of being, and hopefully start fresh if that resonates with you. But more specifically, Saturn rules your Capricorn 5th house of joy, creativity, self-expression, romance, and children, if applicable to you, as well as your Aquarius 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. So again, we are talking about this conjunction in the 8th house, but I also have to consider what Saturn rules in your chart and how that might integrate these themes. So if you're a creative, any creative pursuits, creative projects, self-expression, this might involve sort of a restructuring around your finances that allow a new chapter of potential and possibility involving your creative work and artistry. If this is about romance, relationships, this might, again, go back to your own inner transformational work, as well as sort of redefining and restructuring your ideal involving the merging and the mutual empowerment, whether it's sexual, financial, spiritual. Now, Saturn, again, rules your 6th house as well. So this could also sort of dissolve outdated structures, patterns, beliefs, whatever it may be, to sort of build more vitality in your life. So some of you might sort of restructure your finances or restructure your transformational work to create more of an ideal situation involving your vitality, where maybe some of you are really starting to invest in your health, but in a totally new way, where you can maybe up-level your work, up-level your routines, up-level your ability to have more time in your routine for joy. So again, there's a lot of potential, especially with rulership, particularly in the Virgo rising chart. But I think financially, partnership-wise, resource-wise, there is a lot of restructuring of, releasing outdated patterns, outdated, what is the new financial future that you want to step into? What is the new sort of, through your transformational work, what is the new future you want to step into that could radically restructure and transform your work, your health, and your routines to assist your creativity, incorporate more romance, more joy, and self-expression in your lives. Hello, Libra risings. Neptune entering your Aries 7th house of personal and professional partnerships, including marriage, could be a journey of sort of dissolving outdated structures, patterns, even chapters within your partnerships. Or if you're single, it could be about sort of dissolving those outdated structures and patterns, beliefs, sort of unrealistic ideals that you put on yourselves to attract or sort of get more clear about the partnership that you really desire, that will really sort of be a structural support system or be integrated within that structural support system. Either way, I think this is going to be a long journey of sort of lifting the veil or dissolving the boundaries to sort of see what the ideal is and what the ideal is within partnership, and also how you relate to others. What are others reflecting back to you that can show you what you really desire? What is the ideal? What do you really want to integrate? So this, for some of you who've been partnered up for a while, this could be the dissolution of an old, outdated chapter in your partnership, where you can sort of release, say, this is the old chapter, this is no longer serving. And with Saturn being in the picture, restructure the system and the patterns to not only create the new chapter, the new ideal, but with Saturn's rulership, also sort of, I would say, what can you release to create new structures and patterns within your current partnership or partnerships, or the partnership you want to attract, that also integrates more joy, more play, and becomes a rock, a foundation to which you can build a lot more on top of it. So a lot of Libra rising one-on-one clients I have there. It's interesting. There's I'm not going to talk about details because I take confidentiality pretty seriously, but there's a common denominator with many Libra risings right now, where it's sort of like the partnership they desire, or the situation that they're in within their partnership. It's sort of like they're ready to move into a new phase. They're ready to move into a new chapter. And whether that old chapter was challenging or positive, it's sort of like I think there's just a very strong common denominator where many of you are like, my idea of partnership has transformed. And I think with a Neptune going through the 7th, it's sort of like, if we're talking about Neptune and transcendence, it's sort of like maybe some of you are going through a journey of yes, restructuring and releasing old patterns, but in a way where you can sort of transcend what you thought partnership was. And you can sort of get closer to the ideal or create the new chapter of that ideal. I was listening to a loved one who is a Libra rising, and it's interesting how I started to research this because randomly through conversation they mentioned they've been married for a very long time, and they've mentioned the marriage has had we've always loved each other, we've always stuck as a team and supported each other, but there was a lot of trials and tribulations. And it's interesting, they recently said, for the first time in our marriage of 35, 40 years, it feels ideal. It feels good. It feels like we made it to the other side. So whether you're single or whether you're partnered up, I'm hoping that Neptune's ingress into your 7th house allows the ideal to become clearer, and Saturn's presence allows you to create a more tangible reality that sort of infuses that ideal of what you want or the next chapter you want to step into. Now, more specifically, if I want to add some more details to this, what does Saturn rule in your chart? It rules your Capricorn 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate, as well as your Aquarius 5th house of children, if applicable to you, as well as joy, pleasure, creativity, self-expression, and romance. So I actually think that this could be a a willingness to sort of take charge, to maybe take some bricks out of that wall and rebuild, restructure partnerships or future partnerships where real intimate joy can be found. But with Saturn ruling the fourth house, is sort of like in a very foundational way, where maybe there is a change involving, your home, your living situation, a relocation, or maybe there is some change or restructuring regarding your relationship with family or certain family members that allow more potential and possibility to take place within your own individual close partnerships or future close partnerships that can now start to integrate more of, the family or the children, if applicable to you, more of the joy, the fun, like incorporating more of the pleasures of life, as well as creativity and your own individual self-expression. Hello, Scorpio risings. Neptune entering your Aries sixth house of daily work, health, and routines could definitely, especially with Saturn going through the sixth, I really emphasize this all the time. Saturn entering the sixth house is a very strong opportunity to sort of restructure and focus on your daily work, your health, your routines. But with Neptune being here, kind of changes things a little bit. Neptune going through the sixth house can sort of, I have Neptune in my natal sixth house. So I'm trying to sort of provide all of you a more personalized experience with Neptune in the sixth. It's definitely, I think Neptune going through the sixth house can play into the previous sort of archetypes or traits that I discussed in the intro regarding Saturn and Neptune, workaholism, but in a way where it's like you're sacrificing, you're being of service, you're a workaholic because you're trying to obtain some ideal. And this is where I think the whole concept of, especially with this conjunction, like be very careful about outside influences that might sort of put you in a place of being a martyr or thinking you have to sacrifice really necessary and valuable parts of yourselves to obtain the end results. So it's sort of like, well, this is my vision, this is my ideal regarding, my health, this is how I want to look, this is how I want to feel, this is the work I want to do. And Saturn going to the sixth can be quite a slave driver regarding that. But I think Neptune going through here can help change the situation where it's like, what outdated patterns, systems, beliefs regarding your approach to health, work, daily routines that no longer serve you, that are an unrealistic expectation, where Saturn can come in and say, okay, how do you want to restructure the patterns, the system regarding your health, your work, and your routine to balance the reality versus the ideal? And surrendering or letting go of the ideal around how your health should look, right? We, especially in the US, we live in a society where we have really hard, unrealistic expectations of like what we should look like or what a real human, I would say, what a real human being looks like. And it can sort of, it could provide the opportunity for some of you to see where those unrealistic expectations around what you should look like and, what health and vitality looks like. Like, does it look like taking 1,000,000 supplements and working out for hours every day? Or is there any unrealistic expectations or ideals of how you should look as a worker? And I think that's where it could really come up, where, and sharing my own experience. I actually have Saturn and Neptune in my 6th house. Lucky me. Where the workaholism and sort of like the unrealistic ideal of how much I should work, how much I should work out, what my health should look like. I am in my personal life, I am notoriously known for being relentless on myself. I mean, people in my family come up to me and they're like, "You're gonna reach burnout." But there is definitely, for and this may not be your personal experience, but I'm just trying to provide a personal touch that might resonate with some of you to make you feel sort of less alone, more understood through this process, where, there can be sort of like witnessing, like with my personal, I'm fully aware, like I witness where I'm completely unrealistic. Like, it is very idealistic. It is not, trying to create that in reality is very, very, very hard. So I think the success and I speak for myself, I don't know about other people, but the success that I've found regarding sort of releasing those unrealistic expectations and ideals of how much I should work, what my health should look like, really empowered me to just do my work in a more pure state, and sort of expect or accept the ebbs and flows of life, where it's not always going to check the list every day. It's not always going to be perfect. And sort of releasing those ideals allowed me to connect with others in my work in a much deeper, almost like more idealized or spiritual way. So the 6th house also rules coworkers. And, this could show up for some of you with your relationship with coworkers, where maybe there is unrealistic expectations you put on yourself, and somehow that bleeds into, other people, where this could be sort of the dissolution or the restructuring around being of service and taking care of your health, expanding your vitality, but in a more, with more participation, if that makes sense. So Saturn, and why I say that is Saturn rules your Capricorn 3rd house of familiar environment, communication, exchanging information, as well as your Aquarius 4th house of home and family. So this might involve sort of creating, through sort of surrendering or dissolving, maybe you feeling like you have to sacrifice yourselves or be a martyr or take on an unrealistic workload or take on an unrealistic health and wellness journey, where maybe through dissolving those outdated patterns and focusing on the goal, the end result, you might be able to form more participation through people you live with, certain family members, siblings, extended family, or just people within your everyday environment. So I definitely think there is this undercurrent of seeing how the ideal around maybe your health, your work, your daily routines, relationships with coworkers, colleagues, can actually reach the ideal that you really desire and sort of infuse that into your everyday reality by creating sort of the participation that you really deeply desire or need. So I think this could be a freeing experience where some of you might free yourselves from or be provided the opportunity to free yourselves from carrying a really heavy burden, if that resonates with you, or feeling like you have to do all the work on your own, or you can't rely on anyone, or your health and wellness journey has to be arduous and hard and done alone, where it can actually be more, participatory. It can be more joyful. You can find more joyful ways to do it or, experience it with other people that also want to support you. So I actually think that this process of like a new perfection, this could be a new chapter of a new perfection where you can maybe free yourselves to actually experience more joy and connection with colleagues, coworkers, family, extended family, people at social events, people in your neighborhood that can actually provide more joy and happiness to your everyday work, health, and wellness routines instead of it being lonely and arduous or feeling very heavy. So I think this is where like a new perfection or a new ideal around your approach to work, health, and routines can truly take place. Hello, Sagittarius risings. Neptune entering your Aries fifth house could amplify themes of creativity, creative projects, self-expression, romance, joy, and children, if applicable to you. I really think that this, whatever dissolves, releases, restructures in your life involving these themes, I think it could really create a situation where, or it creates situations where you can really take charge of following your heart's desire in a very authentic, even playful way that sort of constructively creates closeness with loved ones. So I actually think this can, especially with Neptune's just dissolving sort of boundlessness regarding romantic situations, relationships with children, sort of creative projects. I think with Saturn's influence, it can sort of dissolve and create boundlessness, but also in constructive ways that create a deeper closeness to your heart's desire, your creativity, your romance, romantic situations, children, that maybe some of you have had, experienced a level of isolation with Saturn going through the fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So maybe some of you have been sort of going at it, feeling a level of restriction or loneliness that now you can sort of dissolve outdated chapters, structures, patterns, to hopefully reconstruct, new ways of being with your children, creative projects, and especially, I think, your approach to romance or romantic situations, if that's applicable to you. Again, only if this is applicable to you. I think the romance and partnership area of your life, dating, could be very interesting with this conjunction for the next couple years. I think this could help you see where you're putting unrealistic expectations on yourselves to be the ideal partner or lover. And it prevents you from being in touch with your creativity, your self-expression, and even sort of, you think of the fifth house, like your inner child, your heart's desire. So, going back to the intro, talking about, sacrifice and, Saturn's restriction and fear, like trying to be the unrealistic mother or father or lover can really rob you of your joy and, self-expression in life. And it can lead to a lot of disappointment too. So I think by sort of releasing the old chapters, releasing the outdated patterns, structures of maybe, this unrealistic, idealistic situation of, how you're supposed to be a parent, how you're supposed to, the relationship you're supposed to have with your children, or the lover or partner you're supposed to be, and releasing that and sort of stepping into sort of fearlessly being yourself, where you can sort of spontaneously express your more playful and creative side. I think you could step into a whole new paradigm regarding your relationship with children, if that's applicable, or a whole new paradigm of, romantic relationships, your approach to them, really sort of honoring your heart's desire, your inner ideals, and not sacrificing or being a martyr in, relationships or dating situations, or maybe with your children, where you can really just finally like free yourselves into a new system, a new way of being regarding your creative self-expression, and, your joy, your heart's desire. And I also think that consequently could attract the right people in your life or lives that support that honor that love that, want to work with that. So I think that could be, when we're talking about the fifth house, that could really be a path with Neptune and Saturn to sort of deconstruct and reconstruct that inner emotional heart's desire and joy that some of you are really craving. And even that connection that is in alignment to your authentic selves, where you don't have to be this ideal person. You can be yourself, and people honor that and they love that. And, life doesn't have to be so serious. So Saturn rules your Capricorn second house of earned income, what's innately yours, what you have ownership over, whether that's material possessions, your gifts, your talents, as well as your self-worth. Saturn also rules your Aquarius third house of communication, exchanging information, people within your daily environment, like your siblings or extended family. So this could involve, all those things I discussed regarding the fifth house so far, but it could also play into feeding or restructuring your gifts and talents with your creativity, your self-expression. It could also change the way you earn money. So I think this could potentially be a journey where maybe for some of you, tapping into or releasing this unrealistic expectation of who you have to be in order to receive joy in your lives, releasing that could change your approach to your creativity, your gifts, your talents, and thus how you make money. It could also really fuel your self-worth, right? Saturn ruling the second house of self-worth. So really anchoring yourselves in your own values, and by, achieving that through really releasing those unrealistic expectations that really rob you of joy and the real ideal situation you're seeking, whether it's through children, lovers, creative pursuits, self-expression, or just having more intimate day-to-day joy in your lives. This could also show up through people in your day-to-day environment. Like I said, siblings, extended family, communication, everyday neighborhood, stuff like that, where there could be opportunities from your daily environment or opportunities through people in your daily environment, like the siblings or extended family, that could help provide opportunity to maybe stepping into this version of you where you don't have to self-sacrifice. You don't have to be a martyr. And, by not doing that, you could really attract the opportunities that you want that are more authentic and in alignment to the joy and, whatever the heart's desire is around this time. So I think this is not just about fifth house matters. It could also directly impact your relationship with your day-to-day lives or people within your day-to-day lives, how you communicate, how you exchange information. So it's not just about releasing unrealistic expectations or unfair, idealized version of yourself that you have to be in order to receive joy. I think releasing parts of that and rebuilding the version of you, or, allowing the structure, systems, or patterns to support, your heart's desire, who you really are, your inner ideals. It could also be communicated with the world, with the third house connection. So it's not just between maybe like lovers or children or your creative projects. I think there's an element of communicating it, sharing it with people, and that being a way to restructure that system or pattern, as well as, maybe some of you will dissolve outdated patterns or structures to rebuild the joy, the heart's desire, the alignment to the real you. That's not this idealized version or this martyr or a self-sacrificed version of you in order to receive the joy or the heart's desire that you really want, where that can potentially open up avenues of being able to see the ability to earn money, to expand your gifts, your talents, and your self-worth through a more joyful way instead of an arduous, hard, challenging, self-sacrificial way. Hello, Capricorn risings. Neptune entering your Aries 4th house could definitely involve or amplify themes involving home, family, property, or real estate. So family relationships, people you live with, renovations, relocations, investment properties, everything to do within those themes. Now, Neptune going through your Aries 4th house could be an opportunity to sort of release the unrealistic expectations or unfair ideals that maybe some of you have put on yourself. So, for example, I had a client go through a similar transit many years ago. And it was a time where this individual started they got married, they settled down, they started having a family, and their ideal of how they were supposed to mother, how they were supposed to be a parent, how it was supposed to work out did not live up to their expectations. And it was sort of this time of releasing the patterns, the systems, the expectation that maybe was placed on them in childhood, where they sort of had to rewrite the script and reach a level of acceptance of how things actually turned out. And again, going back to the intro about, where can we dissolve things that might feel challenging and uncomfortable, especially with Saturn's influence on this. But it's also an opportunity to see where we're holding on to something that's actually preventing all the possibilities and potentials to take place. And lo and behold, this individual, they live an incredible life now. And it's one of those weird things where they look back on that time, and it was very much like, yeah, I was holding on to what I thought home and family was supposed to be, or how my life foundationally was supposed to turn out. And the life that I live now, I could have never imagined. And thank God it happened, because the life that I have now is a way better picture or version than I thought my life would ever be at that time. So yes, it can be, there can be challenging aspects to it. But I think with Neptune going through your 4th house, there can be sort of this dissolution, or sort of like, what is the ideal around your living situation, relationships with family, maybe relationships with family that don't live up to your expectation. Property, real estate, whether it's, your own or investment, that could move beyond the ideal that you have. It could move beyond, and there could be sort of more potential and opportunity that can open up for you in this arena. It's not to say that it might be challenging for some of you, but I think some of you might be quite literally releasing a living situation, releasing a property or real estate, relocating to align yourselves to a new way of being, a new way of building your life. So, Saturn's influence, especially going through the fourth house, can definitely be a time of restructuring. So, where do you want to restructure the foundation in your life? What needs to change? What's no longer working? How can Neptune help you sort of release what you thought you wanted or what, didn't work out, so that you can build a new, idealized, expansive, more potential, more possibility vision, and infuse that into reality pertaining, regarding home, family, property, and real estate. What's really, really, really interesting in Capricorn rising charts is that Saturn rules your first house of the physical body and the self. Also, the first house being, your own independent action, as well as Saturn ruling the second house of earned income and self-worth. So I think this has an element of, yes, home, family, property, and real estate. But where can old systems, structures, patterns, beliefs around the foundation of your life and the relationships you have on that foundation in your life, where can they be rebuilt or restructured to align to a vision or a reality, hopefully with Saturn, that supports you, that supports your self-worth, your finances? So I think this isn't just about home, family, property, and real estate. I think this is also an opportunity to release and let go of parts of your life or past or chapters that really aren't supporting you in healthy ways physically, financially, your self-worth, your gifts, your talents, whatever it may be. So I think this could be a very opportunistic time to sort of surrender and release what's no longer serving you on a foundational level, to align yourselves and build or, fill in the cracks regarding the foundation of your life that supports the finances, that supports, the version, the best version of you, your physical body, your self-worth. So I think there could be an opportunity to experience sort of emotional satisfaction and safety by sort of creating a new perfection around home, family, property, and real estate. And like I mentioned, this might, for some of you, it might be, you know what, living here in this location, really, it just doesn't serve me anymore. I gotta let it go. I gotta release it. It's not ideal. It's not supporting the next chapter of my life that I want to build. Some of you, it might be people you live with or relationships with family where you can sort of release the expectation that you put on yourselves, or what's just not there. I think Neptune in the fourth house can sometimes be an opportunity to just see people for who they really are and accept them at whatever juncture on their life journey they're on, and you know, the only thing you can do is focus on yourself, on your own integrity, right? If we're talking Saturn and Neptune, it's sort of like, what's the ideal versus the reality around home, relationships with family, property, or real estate, and what needs to be released or let go that's sort of keeping you in a state of spinning your wheels. And I think releasing sort of the perfection or unrealistic ideals or perfection that you put on yourself that could affect, relationships in your life. It could be a path to emotional satisfaction within your living situation. But I honestly think for a lot of Capricorn risings, this has a lot of indicators where it just looks like, what foundation is really going to support the best version of me and my financial future, as well as my self-worth. So I think this could be a very rich time of creating a new perfection in, within yourself, with your finances, your own inner value, as well as maybe relationships with people you live with, your family, property, real estate. So again, I think the last thing I will say is, other people in our lives can feel like family. So those individuals, I sometimes put them in the fourth house where this conjunction is happening. So maybe some of you are looking for other people that feel like family to you, where maybe it's a shift in your foundation, whether it be, your own perception of it, a change in, relationships, what kind of sacred space do you need? What kind of relationships do you need within the home, if that's applicable, as well as any property or real estate situations playing out for some of you. That could also lead to experiencing other people as family. That, again, with Saturn ruling the first and the second, creating communion and a new level of perfection within the home, people you share your sacred space with, the foundation of your life with, which could include friends, groups, communities that feel like family. But I think with Neptune, it could be sort of this restructuring, this, new patterns where you can have new waves of relationship within this foundation that support the real you, support, who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world, and also support your moral, financial, spiritual values, and most importantly, your self-worth. Hello, Aquarius risings. Neptune entering your Aries third house of communication, siblings, extended family, really people within your familiar everyday environment and things within your everyday familiar environment land in this house. So this could definitely amplify themes involving those areas. However, I think this is going to be, the more prominent influence that could come up with this would be definitely communication, exchanging information, and sort of how you operate within your familiar everyday environment. So I think a possibility that could come up with this is sort of releasing or seeing the way you communicate. So, for example, perhaps some of you communicate in very like there's an ideal way you feel you have to communicate something. You feel like I have to communicate something in this very maybe like idealistic or unrealistic way. Or maybe some of you, it's I feel like there is this expectation put on me to communicate in ways that are only palatable to everyone. And so the deeper message or the deeper truth can sort of get lost within that because maybe it's watered down. So this could honestly, for some of you, be a really interesting journey where you release, outdated patterns, structures, ways of being that directly influence the way you communicate with the world and consequently change the way you operate in your everyday, day-to-day environment. What's particularly interesting about this is Saturn rules your 12th house of the subconscious, thought patterns, your dreams, your vision, as well as your first house of the physical body, the self, independently taking action, those kinds of things. Now, if we're talking about communication, there's also a potential where maybe the veil gets lifted or you sort of tap into more potential and possibilities involving communicating the deeper realms of life, the intuition, the subconscious, the dreams, those kinds of things. So if that resonates more with you, if that seems more applicable to you and sort of your everyday life, I think a lot of Aquarius risings could sort of start to maybe talk more, change the way they communicate to communicate the deeper truths that they see, that they know, feel, the deeper intuition. You could be also communicating with people in your everyday environment. Maybe it's through your work or how other people sort of come to you or see you, especially with Saturn ruling the first of the self, where it can be an opportunity to release the ideals or expectations you maybe put on yourselves to communicate things a certain way and sort of communicate in a more, I don't want to say raw, but just a very sort of, this is my intuition, this is my guidance. And more, I would say like owning, like you're owning your inner knowing, you're owning your inner guidance, you're owning your need for solitude. You're owning sort of your inner visions that you have, and you can create new systems and structures based off of that ownership instead of creating, well, this is my own inner world and this is how I really feel. How can I sort of create a more ideal situation for everyone else in my familiar environment so that it's more palatable? But that is also sort of going back to the intro where I talk about Saturn and Neptune and potentially self-sacrifice or building walls. It could be another way where there's a wall there, or it's not really what they need to hear. It's not the real conversation that needs to take place. So this could also support relationships with siblings and extended family. This could be an excellent opportunity to form new relationships with people in your everyday environment, including siblings and extended family, that really value and honor your authentic inner guidance and intuition. Like they want it, they eat it up, they need it. So that could also be another potential here. I think there can be a new I think this has the opportunity to lead many of you to experiencing sort of a new perfection in your everyday communication. This could really radically change and transform the way you show up in the world. I think with Neptune being at the midpoint of Uranus in your fifth house of joy and Pluto in your first house of self, this, whatever's going on with sort of releasing the expectation or the ideals of how you should communicate the inner guidance, you should communicate the truth, you should communicate, what people really need to hear, and sort of, whatever it may be, or how you should operate within your day-to-day environment. Whatever sort of dissolves to, whatever deconditions and then reconditions or restructures in this area, I think could really assist with it being at the midpoint with your own empowerment and joy. So whatever it may be, whether it's, your personal life, your work, your family, people within your day-to-day environment, communication, exchanging information, maybe it's social events. I think this could be a profound opportunity for a lot of Aquarius risings to see how your communication has this like deep inner guidance or inner knowing, but also a profound effect on empowering yourself and stepping into your joy and your heart's desire, and how it, like I said, it might be a little uncomfortable. When we're dealing with Saturn, there's always some level of, all right, what bricks do we need to take, start taking off the wall. But I think this could be a deeply profound journey where you can start to see the strength and the sort of reverberating effect, or the expansive effect that your communication has on other people in your familiar environment, but also creates more joy and more empowerment. So I don't think it's just about empowerment and joy, but I think, when we're communicating certain things where it's not watered down or ideal, or, they don't want to know the truth, or they, I don't want to talk about this part of myself, or my inner guidance, my inner authority, again, going back to the intro, what is your inner authority telling you? And how can you see the boundlessness of, okay, maybe this is a little challenging, or, I have to make these changes. But where can you step into seeing the boundlessness of when we have strength in our communication, we have strength in our inner authority, and we can tap into sort of the Neptunian realms at the same time. We have the ability to have a profound transformational impact on our environment. And I think this could be an opportunity where you can really start to see how powerful you really are, and how we don't need to fight. We don't need to have conflict. We can just have deeply authentic communication in our everyday environment that can lead to profound innovation, change, and empowerment, not just for yourselves, but all involved. Hello, Pisces risings. Neptune entering your Aries second house of earned income and self-worth could definitely amplify these themes regarding your own financial, emotional, spiritual value system. Neptune going through the second house could definitely bring up sort of your individual worth, and where maybe there are systems, structures, patterns that have been sort of conditioned in you, where you've attached your worth to money or, some form of value system. So this could definitely be a journey of sort of empowering yourselves, where the ups and downs of, finances and material possessions are not an indicator of your self-worth and your value. This could also bring up sort of even a desire to prove yourselves through, achievements, recognition, financially, emotionally, spiritually, where it's like an unrealistic ideal, right? There could be just sort of unrealistic expectations you have put on yourselves to make a certain amount or be at a certain level. And this could be a journey where you start to release those ideals and unrealistic expectations, and, not having to prove your self-worth. I think this is something that can sort of be this hidden undercurrent situation that plays out with the second house, where as soon as you feel like you have to prove your value or your self-worth, it could very well sacrifice your inner authority. So again, going back to the intro about Saturn and, Saturn representing authority, but also to consider our own inner authority. What is your inner knowing? And where have you sacrificed that inner authority to feel like you're proving your worth to an external authority? And what is that sort of mirroring back to you, if that resonates with you, if that's something that's coming up? And, this could lead to a dangerous sort of spiral where if an external authority doesn't validate our self-worth, it can be a slippery slope. Now, this could also involve, just on a general day-to-day level, this could involve sort of a complete restructuring, new relationship, new system involving your budget, your finances, money is currency and currency is energy. And sort of how do you, what is your relationship with money and material possessions? And how is that changing for you? And Saturn rules your Capricorn 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. Really the masses, if you think about it. And how our dreams, aspirations sort of play into that. as well as your Aquarius 12th house of subconscious thought patterns. So I think for some of you, this might be a valuable journey of seeing where you sacrifice your self-worth to try to gain self-worth, and working through those subconscious thought patterns or conditioning that made that a thing in your life. Some of you, I think it might be sort of, maybe you're restructuring, you're taking down the brick wall and maybe facing some fears as you start a new chapter involving a dream, a goal, or your social network. Or your social network and your goals could be changing that have a profound dissolving effect around your approach to money and material possessions. So I think for some of you, it could just be this very sort of inner emotional journey of like, where have I attached my self-worth to my finances, and where can I honor my own, or honor and strengthen my own inner authority so that I don't constantly feel like I have to prove my worth or prove my existence, so that I don't go down the slippery slope when, there's ups and downs in life, financially, spiritually, emotionally. Or, like I said, I definitely think this could be the opportunity to sort of, maybe some of you are really restructuring or creating a new pattern that, going back to the intro and talking about Saturn and sort of the fear, but also the opportunity to create a legacy, build a legacy, build the thing that you want that could, not only better your life, but other people, like inspire other people. So I think this could be a total restructuring of your finances, but also in a way where maybe you're starting a new chapter around going after the thing you want, your dreams, your long-term goals, your aspirations, and your, the social network, the friends, the groups, the communities that are really going to fully support that. So I think in many aspects, of course, we all, there's always trials and tribulations in life, but I think this could be an excellent opportunity or influence for Pisces risings, if they want to really step into a new chapter where you can let your true self really shine. If you zoom out and you think about it and you put it into perspective, Neptune's been transiting your first house of self since, I want to say roughly around, off the top of my head, maybe around 2012-ish. So there's been a lot of, changes to your identity, how you show up in the world, who you really want to be, even, potentially even some, spiritual journeys for some of you along that ride. Where now it's moving into your second house, where maybe some of you are ready to sort of let that true, authentic version of yourself come through, so that you can really create the foundation and the vision that you want to make a tangible reality that's really in alignment to who you really are and how you really want to live your life, where you can enjoy the value, whether it's through financial, spiritual, emotional, or even just your self-worth. But I definitely think a lot of Pisces risings could be sort of, I'm hoping, letting more of their sort of deep, authentic most aligned selves into a new chapter where you can sort of step into new dreams, new goals, new aspirations, expanding your social network, and also have the opportunity to sort of really anchor yourselves, create a really strong foundation of inner authority and your own self-worth, so that when the ups and downs of life happen, you're not rocked by it at all. And you can continue on, and you can trust your inner authority, you can trust your inner guidance, trust your authentic selves, and really, instead of letting the external authority, or what I called in the intro, like the opponent, sort of get to you and step on the thing that you want to do in life, and restructuring and creating. Some of you might be creating a stronger foundation financially, and you might be doing this through inner work, or aligning yourselves to the right people that are going to support that very thing or your long-term goals. So that's all I got for Pisces risings. Again, please look at your natal placements. But I think, again, Pisces risings, Neptune is finally starting to move out of your first house since, like I said, roughly 2012. So I think all in all, this can be a wonderful time to step into letting who you really are shine, and creating the moral, financial, emotional, spiritual chapter that is most aligned to that, where your self-worth is completely ingrained in that foundation, and you can continue pursuing your dreams, your aspirations, and your long-term goals.